In 2012, something changed in the human mind, and it's only getting worse. That year, teenage depression didn't just rise, it exploded. Among girls, rates increased by 145%. For boys, the increase was even greater, 161%. Suicide among younger teen girls jumped 67% in just 1 year. And it wasn't only America. The same collapse spread through every developed country, as if someone had flipped a switch. That switch was the smartphone. In 2012, over half of teens owned one. Instagram introduced infinite scroll. Snapchat normalized disappearing messages. Overnight, childhood shifted from play-based to phone-based, and Gen Z became the first generation in history to go through puberty with a smartphone in hand. If you could see the graph, you'd notice something eerie. From 1990 to 2011, the line for teenage depression barely twitches. Little rises, little dips, nothing out of the ordinary. Then comes 2012 and the curve doesn't just climb, it blasts upward like a rocket. NYU social psychologist Jonathan Haidt lays this out in The Anxious Generation. The same sudden spike shows up not only in the US, but in country after country. And in every case, the surge begins at the exact same point. The year smartphone ownership among teens passes 50%. This isn't another baseless kids these days panic. Similar mental health shifts had been spotted before, in the early days of Facebook and when high-speed internet first arrived, but nothing on this scale, and never so precisely timed across cultures. Today, the average teen spends 6 to 8 hours per day on screens, with about 5 of those hours locked into social media feeds. That's more than they spend sleeping, more than school, more than with their families. Haidt calls it the Great Rewiring, a fundamental shift in how the adolescent brain develops, driven by artificial stimulation rather than real-world experiences. And here's the part no one saw coming. The real damage isn't just in attention spans or wasted time. It's happening deep in the brain's chemistry, and it may not be an accident. What cocaine did to the 80s, Instagram did to Gen Z. Let me tell you about the most successful behavioral conditioning operation in history. They don't operate in back alleys or secret labs. They work in Silicon Valley boardrooms, and their product is delivered through apps on your phone. Recent neuroscience research published in peer-reviewed journals shows that frequent engagement with social media platforms alters dopamine pathways, a critical component in reward processing, fostering dependency analogous to substance addiction. The numbers tell the story. The United Nations estimates 64 million people worldwide suffer from drug addiction, while 210 million are estimated to have social media addiction patterns. The digital attention economy achieved 3 times the market penetration in a fraction of the time. Here's the complete psychological framework they built, and this isn't speculation. This is documented neuroscience. Studies show that social media interactions can trigger dopamine levels similar to those seen in other behavioral addictions. The anticipation alone of receiving likes, comments, or shares activates your brain's reward pathways, creating what neuroscientists call the dopamine feedback loop. Every social media platform employs teams of neuroscientists and behavioral economists who understand that your brain releases dopamine not when you receive a reward, but in the moments of anticipation before you get it. That split-second delay when you open Instagram before your notifications appear, that's not a technical glitch. It's calculated psychological manipulation designed to trigger maximum neurochemical response. They discovered that unpredictable rewards create stronger behavioral conditioning than consistent ones. This principle, called variable ratio reinforcement scheduling, is the same mechanism that makes slot machines irresistible. Your brain never knows what's coming next, so it stays in constant anticipation, releasing dopamine with every scroll, every refresh, every notification check. But here's where the system becomes truly sophisticated. research shows that internet addiction is characterized by an impairment of the metabolism of dopamine, serotonin, opioids, and some other neurotransmitters, which affects reward processing, executive functioning, and salience. Unlike traditional substances that require increasingly larger doses, social media platforms create tolerance while simultaneously escalating stimulation. Content that used to engage you becomes mundane, so the system feeds you more extreme, more emotionally triggering material to maintain the same level of neural activation. The platforms then deploy what we call algorithmic escalation, machine learning systems that analyze your engagement patterns and gradually push content toward emotional extremes that generate the strongest responses. Take children's content as an example. Popular YouTube channels for toddlers employ supernormal stimuli, colors more saturated than nature, sounds louder than natural environments, scene changes faster than human attention, naturally shifts. They're training developing brains to crave artificial stimulation patterns that natural environments simply cannot provide. This three-part system, dopamine anticipation, variable rewards, and algorithmic escalation, forms the foundation of what we'll explore throughout this video. Every consequence we'll discuss traces back to this core mechanism that Sean Parker, Facebook's founding president, warned about in 2017 when he admitted the platform was exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. Scientists call this delay discounting, which is when you choose the immediate reward of scrolling over something important, like studying, sleeping, or even hanging out with friends in real life. And if you think you're immune because you use your phone responsibly, wait until you see what's happening to your ability to focus on anything for more than a few seconds. Quick question. How many times have you felt the urge to check your phone while watching this video? If you're honest, the answer is probably at least once, maybe more. And if you haven't felt that urge yet, I guarantee it's coming. That impulse isn't weakness or lack of willpower, it's evidence that your attention system has undergone fundamental behavioral conditioning. The research is undeniable. Our sustained attention capacity has collapsed, with attention spans now 65% shorter than they were in 2003 according to recent studies. That represents a dramatic shift in just 2 decades. But this isn't just inconvenient. It represents the dismantling of what historically made complex human achievements possible. Every scientific breakthrough, artistic masterpiece, or philosophical insight required sustained attention over extended periods. Brain imaging studies reveal that heavy social media users show changes in brain activity within the prefrontal cortex and amygdala, suggesting increased emotional sensitivity, while the limbic system becomes hyperactive and demands increasingly intense stimulation to achieve satisfaction. The average person now receives 192 notifications per day. That's one interruption every 6 to 12 minutes during waking hours. Each interruption creates what cognitive scientists call attention residue. Part of your mental processing power remains stuck on the interrupted task for up to 23 minutes afterward. You're never fully present, never completely focused. TikTok and Instagram Reels have perfected what we might call attention fragmentation technology. The rapid-fire succession of short videos trains your brain to expect constant novelty and immediate gratification through a process called cognitive task switching. After consuming this content for extended periods, everything else feels unbearably slow. Books seem tedious, conversations feel drawn out, and complex problems appear overwhelming because your brain has been conditioned for rapid stimulus response cycles rather than sustained cognitive engagement. This explains why you can watch TikTok for hours without mental fatigue but struggle to read a single chapter of a book. It's why you feel frustrated when Wi-Fi takes more than 3 seconds to load, why you watch YouTube videos at 1.5x speed, why you can't sit through movies without checking your phone. Your attention system has been optimized for artificial stimulation patterns that make natural experiences feel cognitively inadequate. But the damage goes deeper than just focus. We're literally losing the ability to form lasting memories, and it's happening faster than anyone predicted. Consider this historical contrast. In medieval times, scholars memorized entire books because written copies were rare and precious. Their minds became vast libraries of interconnected knowledge. Today, we struggle to remember a friend's phone number long enough to dial it. As we explored earlier, the dopamine-driven design of our devices has trained us to seek immediate answers rather than effortful recall. We're experiencing what psychologists call the Google effect. Our brains becoming significantly less likely to retain information when we know we can easily retrieve it online. But memory isn't just a storage system. It's the foundation of wisdom, creativity, and personal identity formation. When you memorize information through effortful recall, your brain integrates new knowledge with existing understanding and generates insights through memory reconsolidation. A recent study found that students using AI writing tools showed significantly reduced neural engagement during the writing process, with researchers noting that participants couldn't recall their own work minutes after submission because the information had never undergone the neural processing required for genuine understanding. Consider the neurological difference between students who take handwritten notes versus those who type on laptops. Even when typed notes contain more information, handwritten note-takers consistently outperform on comprehension tests weeks later. The physical act of writing forces neural integration that digital interfaces bypass entirely. This connects to something even more fundamental: the construction of personal identity. Your sense of self is largely built from autobiographical memory, the stories you tell yourself about who you are based on what you've experienced, learned, and overcome. When you outsource memory formation to devices, you lose not just information storage, but the cognitive processes that transform experiences into personal meaning and wisdom. Social media platforms have created what researchers call audience consciousness, the constant awareness that life is being observed and evaluated by others. This represents a complete transformation of identity development. Previous generations developed their sense of self through private reflection and personal achievements. Current generations increasingly develop identity through public performance and algorithmic approval systems. Research indicates girls are disproportionately targeted by algorithms promoting appearance-focused content, creating compare and despair cycles where ordinary life feels inadequate compared to carefully curated highlight reels. Body dysmorphia rates have increased dramatically, with girls as young as 10 expressing significant dissatisfaction based primarily on social media comparisons. Studies show boys are spending increasing time in digital environments designed to provide instant gratification that real-world achievements cannot match. Those who begin consuming pornography at 13 are conditioning their dopamine systems for immediate, intense stimulation that natural relationships cannot provide. After years of this conditioning, genuine relationships feel boring, and emotional intimacy becomes cognitively difficult to sustain. Video games provide clear objectives and guaranteed rewards, exactly what real life rarely offers. Many young men report spending 6 to 8 hours daily in digital environments where they feel competent, then struggling to find motivation for education or relationships that require sustained effort without immediate gratification. Instead of asking, "Who am I becoming?" this generation increasingly asks, "How do I appear to others?" The result is what psychologists call identity foreclosure, adopting a persona based on external validation rather than authentic self-exploration. But before you think this is just about young people, let me show you how everyone's ability to connect authentically is being systematically destroyed. Here's the central paradox of our time. We're the most digitally connected generation in history, Yet, loneliness rates among young adults are at unprecedented levels. Young people report having fewer close friendships and feeling more socially isolated than any previous generation, despite having hundreds of online connections. Social media has fundamentally altered how we approach relationships. Instead of cultivating friendships, we collect followers. Instead of having conversations, we broadcast updates. When your social interactions are mediated by screens, you lose the facial expressions that build trust, the physical presence that generates genuine empathy. Real friendship requires gradually sharing personal experiences and vulnerabilities. But social media platforms encourage the opposite: strategic self-presentation designed for maximum engagement rather than genuine connection. The algorithms reward content that generates strong reactions, outrage, envy, amusement, not the subtle emotions that characterize deep relationships. Simultaneously, we're witnessing a dramatic simplification of emotional vocabulary. Words like melancholy, contemplative, and euphoric are being replaced by weird, cringe, sus, and fire. We're not just changing slang, we're reducing our capacity for precise emotional expression. When everything becomes literally insane or absolutely fire, language becomes less capable of capturing the nuanced spectrum of human experience. The platforms have gamified social interaction in ways that actively undermine genuine connection. Likes become social currency, followers represent status, and engagement metrics become more important than mutual understanding. People optimize their posts for virality rather than authenticity, creating relationships that appear intimate from the outside but lack genuine emotional depth or mutual support. This explains the social anxiety paradox. Young people who feel confident navigating complex online social dynamics but struggle with simple face-to-face conversations. They can manage their digital reputation across multiple platforms, but feel overwhelmed by unscripted human interaction that lacks the edit button, filter options, and time delays they've become psychologically dependent on. Research shows that historical figures like Shakespeare had extensive vocabularies reaching tens of thousands of words, while studies indicate modern teenagers actively use significantly fewer words in daily communication, increasingly relying on emojis, memes, and abbreviated responses. We're raising a generation that knows how to perform friendship, but struggles to experience it, that has mastered digital communication, but lost many of the linguistic tools necessary for meaningful human conversation. Here's the most important question. Is it too late? Have we irreversibly altered human consciousness? Or do we still possess the power to reclaim our cognitive sovereignty and redesign our relationship with technology? The hopeful answer is that your brain remains remarkably plastic throughout your entire life. The same neuroplasticity that allowed digital overstimulation to alter your cognitive patterns can be harnessed to restore depth, sustained attention, and genuine connection. Research shows that a month-long dopamine fast will decrease the anxiety and depression that social media can induce and enhance our ability to enjoy other, more modest rewards again. Recovery requires what neuroscientists call dopamine rebalancing, deliberately exposing yourself to periods of understimulation so your brain can recalibrate its reward thresholds and rediscover satisfaction in natural experiences. This isn't about becoming a digital hermit or romanticizing pre-internet life. It's about conscious rebellion against systems designed to exploit your attention for corporate profit. Every notification you disable, every app you delete, every moment you choose presence over documentation represents an act of resistance against what amounts to mental colonization. Start with concrete, measurable actions. Create analog islands in your digital ocean. Phone-free meals where you practice uninterrupted conversation. Use app blockers like Freedom or Cold Turkey to enforce 3-hour focus sessions. Take walks without podcasts or phone access, allowing your mind to wander. This is when creative insights naturally occur. Practice memory retrieval training. Hide your phone for 1 hour daily and deliberately recall information without digital assistance. Read physical books that require sustained attention. Set aside time for projects that take weeks to complete rather than minutes. Learn an instrument, develop a skill, create something meaningful. Most importantly, practice what sounds like torture but functions as therapy. Doing absolutely nothing stimulating for 30 minutes daily. No phone, no TV, no podcast, no music. Just sitting with your own thoughts and allowing your mind to experience the boredom that triggers genuine creativity and self-reflection. This is how you rediscover internal motivation rather than external stimulation addiction. Technology itself offers tremendous value for learning, creating, and connecting meaningfully with others. The issue lies not in the tools themselves, but in how current platforms prioritize engagement over well-being. We need to distinguish between passive consumption of algorithmically curated content, which research clearly shows harms cognitive development, and active creation using digital tools, which can enhance learning and genuine connection. Consider the difference between scrolling TikTok for hours versus learning programming through interactive coding platforms, creating digital art, or using apps like Duolingo that gamify skill building rather than mindless consumption. The technology is similar, but one experience leaves you cognitively depleted while the other builds skills and genuine capabilities. The key distinction is agency. Are you actively directing your digital experience, or passively consuming whatever captures your attention? Real-world examples are already emerging across policy and platform design. France implemented phone bans in schools for students under 15, resulting in improved academic performance and increased face-to-face interaction. The UK's Online Safety Act introduces age verification requirements and algorithm transparency measures. Several US states are considering legislation requiring social media companies to disable addictive features for minors. The distinction between active creation and passive consumption extends beyond entertainment. Using AI tools to enhance your writing process differs fundamentally from letting them replace your thinking entirely. Learning music production software builds skills. Endlessly streaming music videos does not. Creating content for others versus consuming endless feeds of others' content represents two entirely different relationships with technology. We need technology designed around human development rather than quarterly profit reports. This means platforms that reward depth over virality, that encourage sustained engagement with meaningful content rather than rapid consumption of shallow entertainment. The encouraging news is that awareness is growing rapidly. Governments are beginning to regulate exploitative features of social media platforms. Technology companies face increased pressure to prioritize user well-being over pure engagement metrics. Most importantly, individuals are recognizing their power to choose consciously how they interact with digital environments. Remember what we're optimizing for. The goal isn't productivity, entertainment, or even happiness in the immediate sense. It's the full expression of human consciousness in all its complex, contradictory, beautiful potential. Each person has the remarkable ability to choose, moment by moment, whether they'll be a passive consumer of algorithmic content designed to manipulate behavior, or an active participant in their own cognitive development and conscious evolution. The stakes extend far beyond personal wellness or digital detox trends. We're talking about the future of human consciousness, the quality of democratic discourse, the survival of deep thinking, and the possibility of genuine human connection in an age of artificial everything. The brainrot generation doesn't have to remain cognitively colonized, but liberation requires recognizing that attention is not a commodity to be harvested. Consciousness is not a product to be optimized for corporate profit, and our brains are not computers to be programmed by external algorithms. We are human beings with the unprecedented power to consciously direct our mental resources toward what genuinely matters for our development and the well-being of others. The choice is yours. Remain a passive participant in the greatest psychological experiment in human history, or become an active architect of technology that serves human flourishing rather than corporate extraction. Your brain is waiting for you to reclaim control. The question is whether you'll answer that call before it's too late to remember who you were before the machines began thinking for you.